Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu says a Conservative MP needs to formally apologize. That's for comments made about Indigenous communities in the House of Commons this week. During a debate on the First Nations Clean Drinking Water Act, Kevin Waugh, who represents a riding in Saskatchewan, said he's seen First Nations in the province burn down water treatment plants. Ryan Benazzo is following this story.
The Conservative Party has tried to clarify comments made by Saskatchewan MP Kevin Waugh in the House of Commons that drew swift criticism.
I've seen reserves burn down water treatment plants because this government has done little or nothing. These water treatment plants need education, and they need people on reserve to operate the water treatment plants.
Trust a Conservative member to blame First Nations people for burning down their own water treatment plants and not being smart enough to be able to understand how to operate those plants.
Fire has damaged water treatment plants in 2 First Nation communities in Saskatchewan since 2018, but the causes haven't been confirmed. The Conservatives say Waugh didn't intend to make implications about the cause of those fires and was referring to a, quote, trail of broken promises by the Trudeau government on clean drinking water. But Hajdu believes Waugh's comments were reckless.
I think all parties have a duty of care in the words that we choose.
She says he needs to formally apologize.
That was not only hurtful and a stereotype, but it also was completely false. So he misled the House of Commons. He harmed relationships with the First Nations in that province, and he perpetuated a stereotype that's very, very harmful.
And if Waugh won't apologize, Hajdu says his boss should intervene.
If Pierre Poilievre hopes to forge relationships with First Nations people, then he should hold his members of parliament to account, and P. Waugh should get up and apologize to the people that are so harmed by those stereotypes.
The Trudeau government has also come under fire for failing to meet a self-imposed deadline to end all First Nation long-term water advisories by 2021. According to Indigenous Services Canada, there are 28 advisories across the country, including 19 in Ontario. Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
One of Canada's largest social services groups held rallies countrywide today. The target? Large grocery chains. It's the latest push to lower costs at the checkout. CTV's Camille Karamali reports.
The rally outside of this Toronto grocery store, one of 2 happening across the city, where low-income advocacy group Acorn Canada is protesting high food prices.
Stop the war on the poor! Make the rich pay!
The group delivered letters addressed to members of Parliament and to the CEOs of some of Canada's major grocery chains. Protests are taking place in 9 cities across the country today, including in Vancouver, Ottawa, and Fredericton. It's a call to the federal government to also tax big grocers on their profits and place a cap on the price of essential food items. This comes as an NDP bill to lower grocery prices passed second reading this week and will now go to further review. It was introduced back in September to discourage price fixing by introducing penalties.
The prices in the grocery stores are just ridiculous, and it's not even a small change. It's a large change, and it's quite noticeable. People are just trying to figure out whether they can pay rent or do groceries.
Meanwhile, big grocers are arguing it's global factors that are driving up prices, COVID, conflict, and climate change affecting inflation across the board. Kamil Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Turning to international news, where there's despair in southern Gaza tonight, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the evacuation of Rafah ahead of what he calls an inevitable ground invasion. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has the latest.
Rummaging through the rubble in Rafah, this is the aftermath of the latest strikes in southern Gaza that killed more than 30 people, according to Palestinian health officials. My sister, my husband, and their children, including my 2-month-old niece, all gone, says Inas Amr. The Israeli military says it killed 2 Hamas operatives in Rafah, where it has warned a full-scale ground invasion is imminent.
We are extremely worried about the fate of civilians in Rafah.
Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered his military to plan for the evacuation of Rafah.
We also do not want to see any forced displacement, forced mass displacement of people which is by definition against their will.
More than 1 million people are believed to be in the area, the majority displaced from other parts of Gaza, according to the United Nations, the last major populated area not occupied by Israeli forces. The ground operation is looming, and they will do in Rafah like what they did in the north, says this Palestinian.
He's going to go there with the objective of trying to destroy Hamas battalions. And how he does that without killing civilians will be a miracle.
As Israel pushes forward with its plan to eliminate Hamas, the government is facing growing pressures to bring hostages home and find an end to the war.
We don't have any trust in Netanyahu's government.
It's not clear where Palestinians in Rafah, now ordered to evacuate, could even go. Even U.S. officials have warned an invasion without a plan for the civilian population would lead to disaster. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Ottawa.
As part of the budget process, City Council denied the Thunder Bay Public Library's ask for $150,000 for an outside consultant. The consultant was meant to look into the proposed centralized location at Intercity Shopping Centre, though library officials are still confident they can find the funding.
The board will be looking into options to see, what we may need to move around internally. Can we get external funders, either the province, maybe a private donor? But we're very committed to moving ahead on the process. We firmly believe that this work can't move ahead properly without it. And we've had some communication with city administration saying, if you do find the money to make this project go ahead, we'll be happy to work with you, right? They want the best information possible, just as we do.
While Council denied the consultant fees, it did approve the rest of the library's nearly $7 million budget. If the library finds the funding, the main task of the consultant will be to look at the design itself. That would include costs of renovations, along with the purchase of equipment. Togman believes this information and more will be crucial for Council's consideration when they ultimately decide the future of libraries in Thunder Bay.
Something of this scale has never really been done in Thunder Bay before. So we went out during RFP process and specifically looked for firms that have experience. They've built other libraries similar to what we're proposing, and also have worked in the community. They really get Thunder Bay. So we found a fantastic architectural partner to provide that kind of service. We've also contracted with a realtor to help us do that complex negotiation with the mall.
City staff are expected to present a report to Council in June about the ISC branch concept. It will also include information on 2 separate options the libraries put forward, both of which include neighborhood branch closures. Thunder Bay residents looking for business licenses can now look a little more centrally in the city, as the Licensing and Enforcement Division is moving from Victoriaville Mall to the Animal Services Building on Alloy Place. Up until now, licensing remained at Victoriaville because the clerks that handled license enforcement had worked for Development Services. However, the division will now be combined with Municipal Enforcement Services at 882 Alloy Place to align with the new corporate structure. Doug Vincent, manager of licensing and enforcement, says the move will be a huge improvement to the division's ability to provide services.
It consolidates everything in one location. So when someone has a question about, in this case, a business license, as a manager of licensing and enforcement, I would be able to answer that. Now I'm no longer located at this location, and nor are my officers or other support staff. It really makes sense to get everything centralized so that we can provide an immediate response to somebody in a timely manner.
The division will be fully moved in on Monday. However, any documents received in person or by mail to Victoriaville will still be brought to Municipal Enforcement Services. What began as a simple backyard boot hockey tournament has evolved into a popular fundraising event aimed at supporting children with type 1 diabetes. The 11th annual Wolfies Pond Cup brought friends, families, and the community together to have fun and raise money for a good cause. Jessica Clement has the details.
Vickers Heights Community Center was buzzing with activity on Saturday as the popular Wolfies Pond Cup was underway. This year saw 40 participants taking part to not only get their names engraved on the prestigious Wolfies Pond Cup, but to also raise money for a good cause. The event was originally created by Darren Wolframe as a way for him and his friends to get together and play a little hockey while also raising money for charity programs like Easter Seals Ontario. Wolframe's wife and event co-organizer Melanie Wolframe says back in 2021, they decided to switch fundraising efforts to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation.
Well, at the time, she was our youngest daughter, was diagnosed with type 1, so we'd already been doing the tournament for a number of years, so we decided to switch fundraising efforts to the JDRF, and it just kind of became an easy decision for us, and it's a good cause to raise money for.
To date, the Wolfies Pond Cup has raised over $28,000 for the JDRF, the world's largest nonprofit funder for type 1 diabetes research. Wolframe says they're aiming to raise over $10,000, which is around what they raised last year. She adds that the support from the community over the years has been overwhelming.
It's an amazing feeling. So having the support from the community, the people that come out and do the fundraising stuff for us, that offer these prizes and give their gift certificates, their services, monetary donations, everything counts, everything matters, and it's just wonderful to see, and we appreciate everything.
Just all the guys, like I said, it's for a good cause. Everything's good, happy, see all the boys, and just have a good time. That's what I'm all about.
The winning team of the tournament will get their names engraved on the Wolfies Pond Cup, and this year, each member will get to take home a miniature 3D printed trophy. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
And we're now joined by sports anchor Josh Morano. Josh, I was at Fort William Gardens last night for that Thunderwolves hockey game. An electric atmosphere, and no surprise considering how huge that game was.
You know, all I can say is from seeing the pack last night that I am so excited for a playoff game. If they make it, we'll have the highlights coming up for you after the break.